Hey guys, it's Zach Patterson. Today I'm going to be talking and explaining the research that I did on Pablo Escobar and the whole empire that he built. Alright, so many people sort of, I guess not recently found out about Pablo Escobar, but he just became more famous as of really 2015 when a very popular Netflix show called Narcos that many of you may have seen came out. But I'll be going into that a little bit more later. So, Escobar was born in Antioquia, Colombia in 1949, and he had a very poor and humble upbringing. His father was a peasant farmer, and his mom was a school teacher. So he wasn't always this, born into a very wealthy family or anything like that. As a kid, he was like every other kid. He dreamed of being the president one day of Colombia, and just doing normal things that kids do. Throughout his teenage years, he realized that this whole being president thing is not realistic. It's not going to work out. But he still wanted power. So he started out as just like a street thief, stealing cars, just committing very petty crimes. And then he got into the smuggling business through smuggling cigarettes, which was back in the day called the Marlboro Wars. So he did that, through a few years, whatever, realized that, wasn't making the big money, but it gave him, really good insight and experience as to what the smuggling business, had to offer. And it was about that time as well that, in the 70s, early 70s, Colombia became a huge smuggling location for marijuana, and an even bigger smuggling location for cocaine. Really, the reason it became a very big cocaine smuggling location was due to its location, which is northern South America, in between Peru and Bolivia. Peru is one of the world's largest coca plant producers and cultivators, so it made it very easy for Colombians to get a hold of that and produce cocaine. So with that being said, Escobar realized that he had an opportunity to almost be one of the first few to get into the cocaine smuggling business. So there was a well-known drug trafficker in Medellin, which was just a very small, poor town in Colombia, by the name of Fabio Restrepo. Restrepo was killed in 1975, and he had a huge cocaine operation, factory, well, not really factories, but, production places, everything, smugglers' routes, all that stuff. So it's believed that Escobar is actually the one that got him killed. And after Escobar got him killed, he completely took over his organization, everything, the plants, pretty much everything that had to do with that organization, which was already a well-started organization that he could use to his advantage. So after Escobar got a hold of that, he realized that he didn't have the manpower or the men or anything to continue to operate it and become the huge drug trafficker and smuggler that he wished to be and have the power that he wished to have. So him and his good friends that were brothers named the Ochoa brothers started the Medellin cartel. And what they did is they took this operation that Restrepo had and expanded it, made it huge, and got the ball rolling on smuggling a lot of cocaine. So they were trying to figure out ways they could get into the United States, and they met with a no marijuana dealer at the time named Carlos Letter. And Letter told them basically that, an easy way to get it to the United States is through these little small planes and, just starting out with very small amounts at a time. And they were going to fly them straight through to Florida because Florida is fairly close and just the geographical location of Florida worked out. So they did this. They sent, small planes full, started out very small. Realized how easy it was, and then they began just to take off from there. Started buying more and more planes, more operations, and just made a huge, huge empire. At one point, according to Fortune.com, it was said that Escobar was worth over $30 billion. And that made him one of the 10 most richest men in the entire world. It was also believed that, at the peak of their success of cocaine smuggling, that they were smuggling over 15 tons a day and were making $420 million per week. It was also known at one point that in the 80s in the United States that over 85% of cocaine was Pablo Escobar's that they smuggled over here. So 85% of the United States cocaine was due to Escobar. So after making all this money and getting his name out there, he was still hungry for power. So he kind of revamped his dream of getting into Colombian politics, and he made himself more and more popular to these people of Medellin because they were very poor and did not have any money. So he built them houses, built them schools, built them hospitals, basically just took care of them and was almost like a modern day Robin Hood. So at that point in 1982, he got elected as a Congress member of Colombia, but it only lasted about 2 years until the real way he made all this money and that he was a drug trafficker got out. So he was forced to resign. So at that point, he pretty much got really pissed off, and they were threatening to extradite him to the United States. So he got extremely violent, killed hundreds of police officers, politicians, and was very ruthless in just killing a bunch of people. Basically to send the message that does not want extradition and that he does not want the government to extradite him, and he wants them to change their policy or rules on extradition. So he basically used a scare tactic to scare the government into not extraditing him. Well, after that one went on for a few years, he eventually came up with a deal with the president of Colombia, which was Cesar Gaviria, and turned himself in 1991 under the circumstances of him and other drug traffickers not to be extradited, and that he would serve his prison sentence in a prison that he built on his own. So he built this prison, his own guards, had a casino, a pool, strippers, pretty much everything, so it wasn't really a prison. Spent some time in there, and the government was still worried about him, so a year later in 1992, they tried to raid the prison and capture him to take him to a real prison. Well, that didn't work out too well, and Escobar escaped. And basically from that point, there's a 16-month-long manhunt where the government was just trying to find Escobar. After 16 months, they eventually found him, just in a small neighborhood in Medellin, and he got shot and killed on December 2nd, 1993. So that being said, he did leave behind his wife. He had a son named Juan Pablo and a daughter as well. So they're all still living today, I believe. I know the son and the daughter for sure are. There's been some recent information about his son. Like I said that earlier in the video that they came out with this show called Narcos, that basically depicts that whole entire story that I just explained and goes into a lot more detail Anyway, so his son is mad at Netflix and at the show because he says it falsely depicts his family and his father and their whole legacy that he left behind and created. So that was really the most recent information on his son. They did come. So there was one season. They came out with the second season as well, and to this day, his legacy still does live on in Colombia. He after starting that cartel and being worth $30 billion, it's kind of hard not to leave a legacy. So yeah, that's Pablo Escobar, and I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. Thanks.